Welcome back to Successful Living. During COVID-19, there's no shortage of, I don't want to say there's no shortage of help, but there is help out there. And for our small businesses here in Rhode Island, we're joined today by Greg Porcaro from Otranto Porcaro Associates here in Warwick, Rhode Island. And Greg, as always, is going to probably help shed some light on what some options are for our small businesses here, along with some other COVID-19 information that'll help our taxpayers. So, Greg, welcome to the show, I guess, via your office once again.
Good to be back. Yeah, I'm back to work, which is good too. I don't mind being in the office.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have you in here soon. So it's always a lot easier and a lot more personal when we can have you. But one of the things that has come up is Restore Rhode Island, which is a small business grant program. And if you could tell us a little bit about that program and how that works, I think that would be very helpful for our viewers.
So that program was funded in part by federal monies that came out of the original CARES Act. The states were able to marshal some of that together, and they're using it to help small business. The program worked really well and went live, I think, on the 3rd or 4th of August, and then was closed on the 7th once they reached 1,500 applications. Viewers should be aware that's going to reopen supposedly at the end of this week, which would be like the 12th or 13th of this week. That program's going to go live again. They're going to be able to process applications, so be prepared for that. Commerce Rhode Island's website is excellent for providing guidance for people to follow the steps. It's a little bit cumbersome. There's a 2-step process. You need to be prepared to prepare yourself. So you have to look at the website in advance, gather the information they're going to request, and help yourself get the information out there. They do have a company that's processing the applications. I've spoke to them. They did a really good job helping clients walk through some of the things that got misaligned, so to speak. The scope of the help runs from as low as $3,500, I believe, up to $15,000, depending on the size of the company, what industry they're in, and what revenue loss they experience as a result of COVID. So it's, again, a little bit cumbersome. It's definitely worth doing. I've talked to several clients who are going to plan to use the money to recover some of the expenditures they made to open their business due to the COVID restrictions. So I was with a restaurant client just yesterday, and she didn't get a chance, unfortunately, to get her application submitted. So I kind of bugged her about that a little bit. Yeah. And I said, well, what will you use the money for? And she said, to help pay for plexiglass. Because she's in the restaurant business. She needs to do the separation, which now has been changed. So one thing the government should do is develop a system that's going to be consistent, regardless of what might change with regard to COVID. They can't keep bouncing back and forth because businesses can't handle that.
Now it is a grant, correct? It's not a loan.
It is a grant, right? Which is great. Right? So
and is that counted as income or no?
No, well, I don't believe it is counted income. The IRS has not weighed in on that specifically, but my gut feeling would be it would not be counted as income. Okay. The question would be whether the expenditures used, the money used, can you deduct the expenses, which is the same problem we have on the PPP loan. Right. Can we deduct the expenses if we don't have to pay tax on the income generated from the PPP loan? So my guess is it'll be a similar thing. Okay. And the most important thing is, is to get open, is to use that money to get yourself in position to open so you can do business, which is really important. Now,
is that process itself, is that something where they would need guidance from a CPA, or is it pretty much, you think that, most people are able to go in there and it's, from a time perspective, I know it's different for every business, but is it doable, or is it something that would just draw you away from your business so long that it might not make it worth it?
It's definitely worth it because it's a grant, right? So no one, even at the lowest level, it might take you a couple of hours to get the information together, but it's still worth it, right? We communicate the information to all our clients that could benefit, with the expectation that we would not be able to really assist in the preparation because of the time sensitivity. Like, we knew the program was going to be closed quickly, so they couldn't rely on an outside person. What we did find is some of the things they need, payroll returns, for example, and comparative P&Ls, a lot of small businesses don't have. And I think that was a mistake, requiring so much documentation. That's why you have to prepare, because it's a 2-step process. Okay. Get the information together, look at the website, and then try to get as much information submitted as quickly as possible.
All right, and what was that website one more time?
It's commercerhodeisland.com.
Great, okay.
And it's really well done. A lot, as you follow the pages, there's a lot of information. You're going to be patient, but it's all there for you.
Okay. And then you mentioned the PPP loans. A lot of people have, not a lot, but many businesses have gotten that. What's the next step for them now for the loan forgiveness? So, I know some people are aware, hey, there's another piece to this process. So now, how do you get that forgiven? When does that occur? Is there some sort of protocol that they should be following?
So as of like last week, I've been in touch with several banks, and most of them aren't ready or do not want to begin to accept the applications for forgiveness, because even under current proposed legislation, whether it's the HEALS Act or the HEROES Act, there's the possibility they're going to change the forgiveness request process. So the banks are waiting. We have to wait. We don't have final rules. I know that sounds crazy, but
Wow.
It's true. Right now, we don't know. But the theory was that once your 8-week or 24-week period was over, you would submit documentation to prove that you complied with the rules. 60% of the money used for payroll, 40% of the money used for rent and utilities, et cetera. And then you would provide documentation, and the banks would process the forgiveness application, and which would ultimately be approved by the SBA. That's what everybody expected to happen.
Gotcha.
My guess is it's going to languish a bit until we have definitive process for forgiveness.
Okay, so you mentioned obviously the CARES Act, which brought us the stimulus, the PPP loans, unemployment increased, payments out. So, as that kind of, we turn the corner, CARES Act 2 is a possibility, or, I forget the names you use where the Republicans and the Democrats are going back and forth, but tell us a little bit about what is being brought up as possibilities in CARES Act 2 and maybe what some timing might look like for that.
So as you know, as of today anyway, the Senate and the House aren't close on any kind of a deal to reconcile the HEROES Act, which is the Democratic version, versus the HEALS Act, which is the Republican version of what a CARES Act 2 could look like. When you look at the comparison of the different provisions, they're remarkably similar. There's a lot of similarities. So why, other than the price, right? One's at like 3.5 trillion, one's at $1 trillion. Those are crazy numbers. So I think the issue would be getting the price down to something more realistic, because don't forget, this isn't over. We don't know if we're going to have another need for government or support. So you can't spend all your money. It's like going to the Las Vegas, put all the money on black to see what happens, right? You got to save some money to play again, right? And they're not, I don't think, thinking quite like that. So again, there's a lot of similarities, stimulus being one of them. The big difference there is they plan on giving $1,200 under the HEROES Act per dependent, up to 3 dependents. So that's significant. Family of 5 can get almost like $6,000 in additional stimulus. So that's pretty significant. The unemployment's the biggest hot button issue. And as you know, as of today, the president had executed an executive order to provide support to extend the unemployment. They talk about $400, but it's really only $300 because the states have to pitch in 25% of the benefit.
Okay.
How that's going to happen and how soon that's going to happen remains to be seen.
Okay. So his executive order, I think, I've had clients actually ask me recently, does that mean it's just going to happen? Or no, that just means that he's written that down, but we don't necessarily know if it's going to occur or not.
Well, from what I can decipher, it looks like he had the authority under the disaster relief fund to use some of this money. I don't know if that's true. I'm trying to figure out where that fiscal authority comes from, because presidents generally aren't supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Assuming that he can do that, then the money would be coming, but it's integrated through the states, so the states aren't ready. And that's the real problem. So the feds are ready, kind of, but the states really have to adapt to however they're going to handle that. Are they going to take the 300 and throw in the extra 100 in order to get the $400? If they're not, does that mean you get nothing if you live in that state? I think the plan was to put the pressure on Congress to act.
Okay.
And I think that was a good move. I hope they do act soon.
And there is no deadline, right, on this at all? I mean, I think when
now it's over, right? So the deadline will be when people start running to their representatives and senators' house, knocking on the door saying, hey, let's get back to work. I think that's going to be where the deadline occurs.
I mean, could it last as long as, the election in a sense? I mean, this could be pushed on, correct?
You mean the additional payment or the lack of action?
I think in general, CARES Act 2, like the possibility of that. Could that go on for months, or do you think that we see that much closer of, hey, that should be in the next 30 or 60 days?
Well, in terms of additional payment, under the HEALS Act, they wanted the unemployment to go to the end of the year.
Okay.
Under the HEROES Act, they wanted to go to next March. So again, there's another area to reconcile in terms of what's the appropriate timing. At some point, the federal government doesn't have the resource to support all this. That's my fear from a fiscal perspective, long range. How do we continue to do this?
That brings up a great point. So whether we have another CARES Act 2 that comes to play or not, how do we actually pay for this in the long run? I mean, a lot of people say increased inflation or whatever it may be, but everyone's we're just trying to get through this till the vaccine comes, and then we'll kind of figure it out at that point. But what do you see as a professional that this does, to the company, not the company, to the country itself?
Country, yeah. Well, I think at the very initially, it's going to certainly restrain our ability to do other things.
Okay.
All the other things that people are looking for, whether it's Medicare for all and all this, Green New Deal nonsense. Some of this stuff is expensive. We're not going to have the money for doing any of that. However, one way or the other, I think taxes are going to go through the ceiling, regardless of what party is running the show. Because at the state levels, they've been decimated, so state taxes have to go up realistically at some point. At the federal level, they're going to have to do the same thing. There's no other way. We're not going to get, I don't believe, and I'm not an economist, sufficient growth in GDP to generate the additional income that's going to create additional tax revenue to make up the gap that we just created. We spent like $4 trillion in like a week.
Yep.
So, it's not likely we're going to be able to pay that back quickly, and I don't think the growth's going to come that fast. Some jobs may never return. Some industries.
No, I mean, I
change
appreciate
dramatically.
that perspective is a very strong one, and I appreciate your perspective. Before we finish up, any last words that you would tell our Rhode Island small businesses of some rules or just what they should be doing and being aware of?
What I've been seeing, which I'm excited to see, and all the clients I work with, is their ability to adapt and be willing to face the change. So when you think about, again, the restaurant business being so adversely affected, having to change everything and doing so and still surviving, I think is incredible. And I've seen that across the board in other industries that were hardest hit because of the personal contact. The ability to convert, all that thing, that's the resilience. To be a Rhode Island business person, you need to be resilient, because you got a lot against you, and they've done a phenomenal job. So you got to be vigilant, talk to your accountant in particular. I'm a little biased. Make sure that you're doing everything you can to generate those resources, whether it's PPP loans, grants, at the time when we had the EIDL loans. Get yourself in a position in case things don't work out as well as we hope they do.
Great advice. I appreciate it as always. Our viewers appreciate it. You're a wealth of knowledge. We can't wait to see you next time. Hopefully you have some even better information to talk about. Thanks a lot, Greg. All right. When we return, we will answer questions about how to choose a mutual fund. Stay tuned.